It recognizes our belief in God, our country, not just individuals, our country, our founding fathers codified this in the documents that founded this country. Our reliance, our belief in God, and our reliance upon God. Of that, there's just no debate on that. You may like it, may not like it. Declaration of Independence, we find these truths to be self-evident, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, of which are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It goes on in the Constitution to say we are putting together this Constitution in a preamble to secure the blessings, not only for ourselves, for posterity. And that Constitution followed with a Bill of Rights that enumerated those godly rights given to man, including the very first one, which was a right to believe in God and to express that belief anytime, anywhere, including the public square.
33 million. It's proven to the money investors that people want something to feed their souls, not just their worst desires.
Absolutely.
And
yes, indeed.
This kind of sums up my entire dialogue career on the heat of the night. You ready for this? Okay, this is it. My 7 years on the heat of the night. My dialogue all summarized into this. Get right on it, Chief.
Skinner, but Bubba's my name. I like my iced tea sweet and my women the same. I'm your brown-haired badge here in little old Sparta, but nobody's bigger or tougher or smarter. If you're looking to fight, best not be with me. Gonna be held tight, well now we'll just see. You never know in the heat of the night on TNT. Heat of the night on TNT. Now I don't put on any airs, but then I ain't no slob. Just a redneck boy with a blue-collar job. The ladies I date, they gonna have them some fun, cause I'm a big hunk of crime fighting son of a gun. So if you're looking to fight, come on up in the ring. You wanna be held tight, just about anything can happen in the heat of the night on TNT.
Heat of the night on TNT.
Yeah.
Official grass in the Central Valley.
From NFL quarterback to Hollywood to the mayor's office. And now, behind the mic at KXEX, this is the Alan Autry Show. No retreat.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody's driving out there. Nobody. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So, 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable. We are live.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KLTX.
Well, good afternoon. Guillermo Moreno filling in for the great, the legend, the 23rd mayor of the city of Fresno, Alan Autry, and I am so blessed to have retired Marine Corps Colonel John Sommervile in studio with me. Colonel, welcome. I mean, you're no stranger to the studio. I mean, you're no stranger to Alan. You know me and Alan in the studio very well, so it's like you're back home.
I feel at home. Thank you. Where's my slippers?
The MAGA slippers. The producer will bring in just a bit. But I do want to give a little bit of house cleaning here. I know many of you of Alan's Army have emailed us regarding Alan Autry's birthday. He's got a birthday coming up, and I know if Alan's listening, right, he's going to get so mad at me right now that I'm even mentioning, because Alan's is super humble. He never wants to make a big deal about anything. But I want to let you know that I am going to respond to those emails regarding Alan's birthday, and we'll definitely celebrate it here in studio and do something very special. So I will respond to those emails. Thank you so much. And I know there were some other comments in previous shows, so we'll make sure we address them as well. But Alan, we'll be back tomorrow for Free for All Friday with Bob the Bullet Leone in studio. But right now, we have retired Marine Corps Colonel John Sommervile in studio, and for Alan's audience, Colonel, that might not be familiar with you, you're a veteran. You've served our country. You've gone to Israel over. Have you reached 100 trips to Israel?
Yes, I think so.
You think so? All right. So you've gone to Israel. You kind of a little fun factoid. You were on the coaching staff of Ohio State football at one time.
There's no question about that.
I'm not going to hold it against you. I don't know why you just didn't go to Michigan State, but that's fine. I'm not going to hold it against you. Being a Buckeye and all. But you have an immense amount of knowledge, but your humility, you will not admit that. But you are just they don't make them like you anymore, Colonel. They don't make them like you. They don't make them like Alan Autry anymore. So, we got to pick your brain. As every time you're in studio, we got to pick your brain and make sure that we get all that wisdom out.
Okay, pick away.
Whatever, Guillermo. Just do the thing. Colonel, I want to, since you know a lot about the world and world politics, you've been all over the world. You've been in Ukraine, right?
Oh, I have been. I left part of my heart in Ukraine.
Really?
So I feel very strongly about the fight that Ukraine has been putting up.
When you mean you left part of your heart in Ukraine, what do you mean?
I mean, I love that country. And we were there on a relatively unusual kind of a mission. We were looking for Jews in Ukraine. Now, thousands of Jews have left since the war started, but thousands had left before that. And over the years, Ukraine has had a very bad reputation for a lot of anti-Semitism, but there were millions of Jews that had lived there, and 1.5 million Jews were killed during World War II from Ukraine. Many by the prisoner and the guards in Auschwitz and other places, and most of them were Ukrainians.
Wow.
Who volunteered with the Germans to do that. So a lot of these guards that have been captured later on, years later, and have been brought to trial in Germany and other places, came from Ukraine.
Didn't know that. Wow.
So one of the things that we found was that there's many Jews living in Ukraine who have been hiding their Jewishness all these years.
In Ukraine still?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
And
why were they hiding it?
Because they knew what happened to their grandparents. They knew the kind of anti-Semitism their parents had faced, and what they would probably face, depending on where they lived and what it was about. So it's a very unusual country now, and for the first time, they have a Jewish president. Zelensky is, to me, is an amazing person who came from being a comic, being an actor, all of these kind of things, and became president. And he was voted in. And what they did in Ukraine was they threw out the other president, who then escaped to Russia. He was one of Putin's boys. And he's, as far as I know, he's still alive, hiding in Russia. And so this was a real rebuke to Putin and to what he stands for, and of course with his vision of Russia being the empire
Yeah.
that it used to be, that he so wants back again. Um, This is the beginning of his move to take it all over and to punish them for the fact that and all kind of craziness.
Yeah. Colonel, let me pick your brain here with regards to NATO and the essentially the I would say it would be a snub against Ukraine, saying that you're not going to become a NATO member until you meet these parameters, and essentially this Ukrainian Russian conflict is over. Then you can start the process of becoming a NATO member. Well, first let me ask you, what do you think of NATO, and then what do you think of the parameters that they set upon Ukraine?
I think NATO has, during this time since the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, I think NATO has changed somewhat. You may remember that the first country that jumped in, we're going to send tanks, we're going to send all, was Germany, and then they never did it. Then they backed off, and we've played this game horribly, and I think we should be terribly ashamed of the way we've done these kind of things. We talk about sending them all this stuff, and then we delay, and we talked about sending them F-16s. Well, we're nowhere close to getting them there. They need these things now, and they can fly them. And we delay for months and months, and then we talk, and then people say, "What's the cost of all this stuff?" I want to tell you from my own personal experience, and someone in my family who is involved in shipping stuff to Ukraine, shipping weapons and armament. He said it's the oldest junk we have. We get some of these things. They're on a platform that we're supposed to put on these planes, and there's little trees growing through them. And this stuff,
Wow.
this stuff that some of the people who are against the war are claiming how we're deleting our own stuff. We've got things that have been sitting 25 years in bunkers.
I've heard that on Fox that we're depleting. We're depleting our stock. We're not going to be ready for an attack on our ally or us somewhere around the world. So that's probably not very.
Yeah, if you think that some of this junk we're sending them is ready to go to war for us, that's insane. And certainly during this last administration, we've really depleted not only our readiness with a lot of the training we're doing and non-training that we're doing, but we are not hurting ourselves by sending this stuff. Frankly, we've hurt ourselves by not having a lot of this stuff online, not having it ready to go, not thinking ahead that we might need these kind of things. And it's criminal as far as I'm concerned that we've left them out there promising them a lot of this stuff, and when then we send them junk, and then we moan and groan about how we've sent so many billions of dollars worth of it. Those billions of dollars aren't going over there; they're going into buying new equipment that we're going to have to replace.
Colonel, what do you think about the parameters that NATO has set, saying, "Hey, you guys gotta find a solution to this conflict, and then we'll think about it."
That's not how I really understood what this last meeting was about. It seemed to me that most of NATO was ready to say, yes, bring them in now. And we said, no, we can't do this. Article 5, Article 5, if one country is attacked, then we're all attacked and we'll all go to war. Well, look, there's a lot of wiggle room in Article 5,
yeah.
like all kinds of things. And in fact, some of these countries would find a reason not to go to war, even though one of the countries were attacked. Now we're bringing in other ones. This was one of the reasons that Putin attacked, was the fact that it's kind of coming right close to his border. If in fact Ukraine was not in NATO, and NATO had said, no, we're not going to take them in. And so, but he saw that was weakening. And so now, this week, we've said, yes, we're going to take them in when the war is over. Well, what does that mean? We don't know what that means. First of all, let's say tomorrow that Putin says, okay, let's negotiate. Does that mean the war is over? But, well, a third of that country belongs to Russia now because they've been in there in parts of it since 2014, and now during this last invasion. If the war is over, do they get to keep all that? Look, they have killed tens of thousands of innocent Ukrainians, and we're talking innocent. We're not even talking soldiers. We're talking maternity hospitals that were hit, homes that were hit. All this is so brutal. In my opinion, if we do not drive out Putin and drive the Russians out, then we are forsaking the things that we're supposed to stand for. I don't mean NATO is supposed to stand for. I mean the United States is supposed to stand for. Aren't we the strongest? But who's making us look weak? England. England is sending things that we hem and haw about. And most people couldn't even tell you who the Prime Minister of England is today. But they've jumped in and they're doing a lot of these kind of things. I think Zelensky is one of the true heroes of modern times, especially when, what was our thinking in this whole thing? Well, we'll take you out of Ukraine, out of Kiev, and we'll set your kingdom up somewhere else, and you can run it from there. And this ought to go down in the record books when he said, "I'm not looking for a ride. I'm looking for weapons.
Yeah.
I need help." He looked so despondent yesterday. It seemed that a lot of people in NATO, a lot of the countries, were ready to bring them in and say, "Okay, we're behind you." And it seems to me that the United States is the one that said, "Oh no, Article 5, we can't have them join us while they're at war." They didn't start the damn war; they're the victims of it. And we could do a lot more, but we backed off on that.
Colonel, you served. Give me your opinion on how does this end? I mean, is this going to be a long, protracted war? It's going to go on for years. Are the Russians going to give in? Are the Ukrainians going to give in? Are they going to piecemeal it? Are they going to say, "Okay, fine, everything goes back to the way it was. You guys keep the portions that you've been occupying, and then we're..." Well, how does this? What happens? Is it going to be grand on a bigger scale where it's going to drag in the United States and we're going to have this global conflict?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's any heart to do that, especially if they're listening to Biden and like, "Oh, we can't get involved till this war is settled." How will it end? Look, I can't see the future. But I can say this: if I was the Ukrainians, I would not let it end with my country still occupied by the aggressors. And if we, in fact, give them what they need, and they need air power, they need a lot of these weapons that we could give them easily, and they could use it because Russia has really turned out to be a teddy bear. They're brutal and they're terrible, but they're not a great army.
Were you surprised by that? When
Yeah.
that they couldn't? I mean, their landed advances were just slim and minimal. I think I expected. I think Putin expected this to be over within 2 weeks.
There was something that happened Saturday, and I still can't understand it, and I didn't follow up on it. But I came into the house, I was working, and sat down for a minute, and Fox News was on. And they were talking about stuff that didn't make sense. And they flipped to the White House, and a girl was saying, "Okay, the whole idea was that Kiev was under siege. Kiev was about to give up. The war was almost over." They even had a clip of Jack Keane on there saying, "I knew they weren't going to win this thing."
Really?
Yes. They were showing all this old stuff, but up in the left-hand corner of the screen, it said live. And I said, "This isn't live," because the one person at the White House said, "Oh, and Joe Biden just nominated Ketanji Brown," or whatever her name is, who's on the Supreme Court now, just nominated. I said, "That's a couple years ago." And this went on for like
Really?
maybe an hour. I meant to look it up. I said, "This is wacky." They're talking about stuff. And so when they were saying Kiev was about to fall and it's being bombed and all this kind of stuff, they were talking about the first days. You remember
I do remember. Yeah.
there was a 40-mile entourage of Russians who had come in, and then they couldn't move. Their tires were going flat. A lot of the troops were slitting the tires and everything else. I mean, it turned to nothing.
They grabbed the wrong file to air. We do that sometimes here at the station. When we're naming files, they probably put the wrong.
Well, it went on for a long time.
Really?
Evidently nobody was noticing it. I can't believe this, because it scared me. I thought they were about to surrender, and any minute Zelensky was going to be brought on in handcuffs. And praise God, it didn't happen. But it awakened me to the fact that we are subject to what we get over TV or what we get off our phones as far as news goes. And it can be slanted. I see it all the time. Slanted news, fake news. That's why I love this station. And I love you guys and the ones you have on it. I don't feel there's fake news coming out. We're looking for the best we can. It's like this Article 5. This whole idea, we can't let Ukraine into NATO because they're at war, and that means we'd all be at war. Well, we ought to, in many ways, we ought to be supporting this war. They don't need us. In fact, we saw this oddest thing when Brzezinski took his Wagner group and was going against Moscow, and all of a sudden, the whole thing is so bizarre, it wouldn't even make a good movie, because you'd say, this can't be true.
That's true. That's a good point. What we're doing good on time, Colonel. I want to see if we can fit this in here, because you and I do a show every week, and we focus on Israel. We focus on that unbreakable bond between the United States and Israel. And before the show, you and I were talking about the French and the protesting, and the Americans were kind of just sitting by watching all the everything happen in France. While if Israel dares to do anything against trying to combat terrorism, the United States, this administration jumps all over them. Since we're kind of talking about geopolitical issues, give me your opinion on that.
Well, I think that we only see, as far as our administration goes, and who knows what goes on in the back room. These stories are coming out.
Cocaine. That's what goes on in the back room.
Well, in France, they've had these riots in the streets, and the police have just cracked down on them. Really. One person was killed. You can see the film when they show a little bit of this, how they're beating the people and driving them back and all that sort of stuff. What do we say about? What does the United States say about that? What does Biden say about it? What does Jean-Pierre, whatever her name is?
Yeah.
What does she say? Nothing. It's not even. But Israel goes into Jenin, which is the hotbed of terrorism in the West Bank. They go in there for 2 days with a number of troops, and they bring out 12 terrorists, and they do this kind of thing. And we're all over them. How dare they go in there? How dare they defend themselves? How dare they go into a part of their own country and do this stuff? This whole thing with this administration is we are selling out our greatest ally that we have in the world, and that's Israel. Because we want to get back into Iran, we want to get back into the deal, all of those kind of things, and consequently, our president has invited the president of Israel. Those two presidencies are very different in structure. The president of Israel is just ceremonial.
Yeah.
That's his job. No, there's no power in that office whatsoever except the power of his personality. And he doesn't have a great personality. He was a failed politician. He was the head of the Labor Party. And the Labor Party used to be very strong. It used to be the strongest party in Israel. Today, it's one of the weakest. And I'm not sure how many members they actually have in the Knesset. 2 or 3, something like that. It's a very low number. And so this is awarded to him for a lifetime of service. His father was a very important, influential person in Israel, much more influential than he ever was. But he's coming representing Israel. That's not how it's done. It's the prime minister of Israel, the one who has been elected and given the power.
He should have invited Bibi.
He should have invited Bibi, but he's not going to, because Bibi's seen as a right winger and a guy that isn't in favor of the two-state solution and all these kind of things. And so it's all part of this world political view that our current president has, which it makes no sense.
I was going to say, I don't think that makes, that makes too much You mentioned Iran, Colonel. Where are we with the deal?
People are on tenterhooks about that because it could be behind the scene. There's a lot more going on than we expect, and suddenly Joe could announce we've got a new deal with Iran
any minute. Yeah, any minute.
It's possible. I hope it's not. Certainly, Israel can't count on us anymore, like they could. That we will back them. If Israel has to respond, if they have to attack, if they have to go after some nuclear sites and all the rest of that, they really can't do it. They can do it. They'll find a way to do it, but they can't do it without U.S. help and without U.S. backing, especially when it comes to refueling. They have Israel has already ordered these refuelers that can refuel 3 jets at a time and carry a great load of fuel. Right now, they what they can do is only they can refuel 1 at a time. This you can't really have a sustained bombing campaign with that kind of backup, and it's a long haul to get over there. So they need U.S. support. They need not only support in a material way, but also in a moral way. They need to know that we're standing behind them. If we don't, it's to our own damage that we do that. We're selling out the best ally we could possibly ever have.
Yeah.
And I hate to see it. It really makes me sick.
Well, I think unfortunately, if we head into another 4 years of Biden in 2024, I think our relationship with Israel will be further strained. So we need a miracle, Colonel. We need a miracle. And I'll tell you what, we got to take a quick commercial break, but we come back. I kind of want to pick your brain on the slew of candidates. Are they pro-Israel? The conservatives that want the nomination. I heard Nikki Haley say something one time that I think I told you about it. That just got under my skin about Israel, and it was I didn't like it. But anyhow, we'll be right back here on the best talk in town. Guillermo Moreno, John Sommervile, retired Marine Corps colonel, joining me here. I'll be right back.
What did you say?
It was something if we're good. If we knew that the Iranians were going to that they were going to have a nuke, or we knew one of the sites, would she act as president and take out that site? And she had said, "Oh, well, I don't want to give away what my potential strategy would be." So, I mean, pretty much sidestepped it and didn't give a definitive. Yeah, I'd knock that thing out to Kingdom Come, which was, I mean, former UN ambassador. Like, why wouldn't she?
Why was she the former? I never figured out why she quit.
Okay, she wanted president. Yeah. Donald Trump said she can't stay in one position too long. She just can't. All right. For those of you on our Facebook page commenting on Alan, let's see here. No, it's just cocaine. Alan can sing. Had it been one of us, no Alan today. Yeah, Alan will be back mañana. Betty, Wisconsin is tuning in. Did you ever go up against the Badgers, Colonel? Ohio State?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They have a pretty good team?
They're unforgettable. Since they had Crazy Legs Hirsch, but that was a long time
ago. Cocaine comments. Everyone's interested in the cocaine. All right. Tennessee. Hello from Tennessee. Everyone's welcoming the Colonel. Colonel. And by the way, for those of you on the listening on Facebook and the national audience, towards the end of this program, we'll tell you how you can go to Israel with the Colonel coming up in October or January. Go Bucks! Oh, we might have a Bucks.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Donna.
Good old Donna. Way to go.
All right, and then everybody's asking about how to get. Okay, so listen, I'm going to put my email. So I have some of you wanting to get a hold of Alan. Let me put my email on there. There you go. That's my email, and I do check it regularly. Hello, Colonel from Tallahassee, Florida.
Really?
Yeah, Tallahassee. Kevin. They all want us to talk about cocaine, Colonel. You got an opinion on cocaine?
No. That seems like a cover-up, doesn't it? Suddenly they have no fingerprints, no.
Oh, man.
This hour of the Alan Autry Show is sponsored by Simlaw, the most realistic artificial grass in the Central Valley.
Alan Autry is not in today. Guillermo Moreno filling in. I have a very special guest, a great member of the KXEX family, retired Marine Corps Colonel John Sommervile, in studio. And I always enjoy talking to you regarding Israel and regarding the Middle East and what's going on around the world. And then we want to welcome everybody tuning in on our national audience on Facebook Live. Everyone wants to know about cocaine. It is what it is. It's the Colonel. You were saying, hey, it sounds like a cover up to me. It does sound like a cover up. I really wish that they would just be honest. I think I'd have more respect if Joe Biden came out and said, hey, listen, Jack, someone's got a problem. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to make sure they get the help. Why just be honest? But never mind. Nevertheless, that's not happening. Colonel, we have some of the audience saying thank you for your service. Would you mind telling us what years and where you served, Colonel?
Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps from 1965 to 1995.
Wow.
And it was a wonderful time. I woke up every morning scared to death that they'd find out how much fun I was having. So I had to paint on a stern face and do all those kind of things.
Do you have classified documents, Colonel?
Yeah. Hey, no, I can't tell you the story.
Oh, man. All right, Colonel. Well, maybe more off air, you could tell me the story.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that.
Colonel.
Knowing it would never go any further.
Colonel knows things. I just have that feeling that you know things, Colonel. You know who brought the cocaine to the White House then? No, I'm kidding. Retired Marine Corps Colonel, always a pleasure, like I said. All right. I want to ask you this because you've written several books, and one of them I thoroughly enjoyed because I've read it, is the accidental presidents that became the blessers of Israel, and you go through Harry Truman, LBJ, Donald Trump, and you've studied these presidents, and if you could truly see God working in these United States presidents and with the founding of Israel. And it just, I mean, these presidents that have been blessers to Israel had a Jewish connection in their family. One of them, it was Donald Trump. And when we look at 2024 and we look at the relationship between the United States and Israel and really the region, because the Middle East is always important to the United States. Let me ask you this: with all the candidates in 2024 on the Republican side, you got Donald Trump, you got Ron DeSantis, you got Nikki Haley, you got Chris Christie, you got Mike Pence, you have Tim Scott. And I know you do a lot of reading on the Israeli news that comes out. Is there any preference for any candidate over the other with regards to how pro-Israel they would be or how they would potentially solve any conflict in the Middle East?
Well, I think the only one that's ever done anything that is rewarded for it is Donald Trump. And as an example, I was on a flight on the day of the election. And
2020 or 2016?
2016.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I were getting on the plane in L.A., and there was a lady there selling T-shirts right when you're getting on the plane. And the Hillary shirts were all spangles and buttons and bows and beautiful things. The Trump shirts were these old gray, looks like an old shirt you found around the gym. It said Trump and Pence on it. Okay. And I said to my wife, okay, I'm going to buy one of these. I'll buy you one. I'll get two. She, just in case, as a souvenir, I think I said. And she said, no, he's going to win. I said, from your lips to
I could hear Mary saying that.
Yeah. So anyway, we got on the plane. We flew all night. We had no idea what was going on with the election. And when the plane landed in Israel, There was a delay to get to the gate, and so everybody was sort of standing up, and we were near the front. And a stewardess came up and whispered in my ear because she'd kind of been talking to us during the flight. She says, "I heard Trump won." I said, "No, really? Did he? Really?" She said, "Well, I heard it in the back of the plane. I'm not really sure." And I said to my wife, "I'm putting the shirt on." So, so I dig through and I pull on this old Trump Pence shirt. And by this time, we were going to unload the plane, and people are standing up waiting. And I got my shirt on, and I'm right near the front, standing there with it on. And people are raising their fist and going, "Yeah, you know." And so we got on the passport line, and we were lined up to, and people start, I can see them, they're hitting each other. They're pointing over toward me with the shirt, and I'm showing the shirt off. And this woman in front of me turns around, and there's blood in her eyes. There's fire coming out of her nostrils. And she says, "I hope you're happy." And I said,
What'd you say?
I said, "Yes, Hillary, I am." And that was enough. She got out of the line. She just went somewhere else.
You couldn't take it.
But to talk, though, about the Israelis, Mary and I think I wore that shirt for 3 days or so until she made me go wash it. But we were walking through the old city of Jerusalem. And if you see the Hasidic Jews, the very ultra-Orthodox, they are in their own world. I mean, they're all in black, and they've got different hats on and socks and all that. And they never look at anybody else. They don't even look at other Jews.
Yeah, they don't.
It's only their neighborhood. And so we're walking, and I look at this guy, and out of the corner of my eye, he starts running toward us. And I go, "Oh, my gosh, what is this?" And he charges right up to me and goes, "High five!" Trump, Trump, Trump. And then he got a bunch of kids on the street going, "Trump, Trump, Trump." Okay, that was the first day Trump was in. He still hadn't done anything for Israel yet, but they were all for him. And, of course, he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He did many things, and there's something going on there right now. And the story I heard, I think, is true. When he and Melania came to visit, to go to the Western Wall, as you know, you got to go down a bunch of steps to get to it, and it's kind of a long walk.
Mm-hmm.
And while he was down there, he asked, "What about people that are in wheelchairs? How do they get down here?" And they go, "Well, you know, they got to go out of the city, and they got to come around, and they got to do all this stuff." And I'm told, he said, "Build an elevator for them. I'll pay for it." And there is an elevator under construction. The last 2 times I've been there, his name isn't anywhere near it. And I don't think people know that he gave the money for it, but that's the kind of heart he has. And that's what they sensed about him. And we had the best relationship with Israel that we ever had during his 4 years in office.
Colonel, let me ask you this, because in the book, what is Donald Trump's Jewish connection?
Well, I think a lot of it started with his father, because in the book there's the story of the family of Malky Weisberg. Her mother and father, her grandfather died during the Holocaust. It's a very long story, but she went into hiding. Her fiancé, who she's supposed to marry, also went into hiding. He was captured by the Germans a few times. He escaped. They were both miraculously saved during all those war years. Then they didn't even know whether the other was alive. It's an amazing story how they found each other and married. And he had, like his father, had been studying to be a rabbi. And so when they got out of the camps and got married, and they went to South America first, and then they went to California. And but they didn't find a school that they wanted their children to go to that was a Torah-based school. So they heard there was one in New York, so they moved to New York. This young rabbi and his wife. And he got to New York, and he went to the Rabbinical Association and said, "I'm a rabbi. You know, is there any place I can serve?" And they said, "We got so many rabbis. You know, they all came from Europe, and they survived, and they're here. It's just we're plagued with rabbis. But you know, I have an idea. There's a big apartment building over in Brooklyn, and if you'll go there, maybe none of them are religious, so they're probably not going to like you anyway. But maybe you can get a little congregation together. And so his name was Israel Wagner, was his last name. And so they moved into this apartment, and he started getting people together, and they started having prayer. And it grew so much that they moved into the parking lot underneath the big apartment building. But, it's wintertime, and snow and ice melts and water comes down. It was just not appropriate for like 300 people to be meeting there. And they said to him, Rabbi, why don't you go see the owner of the building? Maybe he can give us another room or something. He said, no, I'm not going to go see that guy. He says he's Swedish, but I know he's a German. I can tell he's a German, and I know Germans from having suffered under them. But after a while, he said, all right, what do I have to lose? So I went to meet him, and they immediately hit it off. And they became best of friends for the next 48 years.
Wow.
And this guy who owned this apartment building was also building other apartment buildings. And his name was Fred Trump. And Fred Trump is Donald Trump's father. And so they got acquainted with young Donald, who was 14 years old at the time. And so for all these years, there was this connection between, and Fred Trump said, this is my rabbi,
Oh, wow.
And they were very good friends. This was the start of things. And while I was in Israel a couple of years ago, when Trump was still in office, he had sent Malki, who is the daughter, a letter inviting her to the White House for Hanukkah.
Wow.
Said, I remember your parents and what a blessing they were. And my father, oh, by the way, Fred Trump gave them a piece of property to build a synagogue on. And then he gave money to build the synagogue. And every year he gave them a big amount of money. And there's a number of pictures of him at the synagogue. So
wow.
Even though he was a Lutheran, he loved the Jews. And so that's a good story. And that's why they love Trump. And Trump epitomizes this. His daughter converted to Judaism. He talks about his Jewish grandchildren and all this. This guy loves the Jews. Praise God. And you know what? And that reflected on us. During his years in office, we were blessed because it says in the Bible that if you are a blessing to Abraham's descendants, God is going to bless you. And that goes for individuals and it goes for nations. And as long as our nation is still a blessing to the Jewish nation, God is going to bless us. But now we're working to break that bond and to go over with Iran during this administration. And I just hope and I pray that God will not allow this to happen, because this impacts not only us, but our children and our grandchildren. And now I got a great-grandchild. All of that is going to either be blessed or suffer as a result of what this administration is doing.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Colonel, while we're talking about Israel, you're going. You're going October. You're going in January. Specifically for the October trip, what are you planning? 11 days. Give us the dates.
Yeah, we're going the 8th through the 20th of October. And it's right now we're working on going to a new place that has just been discovered and being uncovered. But it's not new. It's more than 4,000 years old. It's called Sodom and Gomorrah. And why was Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed? Well, you can read it in Genesis 13, 14, 15. You read there what they were doing where God basically said, if what I hear is true, I'm going down to check it out. If it is true, I'm going to destroy that. And in fact, Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed by it looks like a comet that hit that town, blew it up. That had atomic power to it, because the same kind of destruction that has been uncovered in the dig is the same thing that happened ground zero with the first atomic bomb. It melded together sand and other particles, turned it into glass. It was that kind of fury that brought this about. This is important not only as a historical site, but as one that is real. It wasn't a fairy tale. And so we're going there. That's unusual. We're going to Egypt, where the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea. It's startling. It's exciting to show a place where it actually happened. And fits with all the biblical references. And Bethsaida. Now, it's not a term that is generally well known, but it's one of the fishing villages on the Sea of Galilee where Peter and Andrew and Philip came from and where Jesus did a number of miracles. And it's being uncovered because fake news has put it in another place far away from the actual site. But now the real places are popping up. And I think they're popping up for a reason. We're living in a time when God is saying, my word is true, and here's some other things that show exactly that it's true. So if you're smart, pay attention to what the word says.
And this is true. You'll be over there in Israel, and some of the churches have claimed this is where this happened. And like you're saying now, it's to me, it's just crazy how they're still finding. I mean, the amount of digs that still go on in there is just it blows my mind. I think it's
there's nothing like it. And to go to the actual sites, and almost all of these are outdoors. They're not inside a church. Churches over centuries were built, great monuments. Then they imported a miracle into it, and then people go there and they don't know any better. And so the guide tells them this is where this happened. They go, "Ooh, that's wonderful." It's much more wonderful to go to the exact places, and that is the one thing that sticks in my craw. I hate to see people get gypped because this is usually once in a lifetime. And if in fact they go to the real places and then they read the scriptural stories on the site, it's gonna be welded into your mind.
Yeah.
And that means you can pass it on to your children. You can pass it on to your church. I heard the other day from a pastor who went. He said he found out that only 3% of pastors in the United States have ever been to Israel. It should be a requirement. It should be like going to Bible school because it doesn't change the story. It makes it better. It makes it bigger because you've been there.
That's so true. 11 days, October 8th through the 20th, and it's not a vacation. We say that. It's not a vacation.
No, it's not. We're there to study. And I found out yesterday that the price, the airfare right now is half of what of what it's going to be. Yesterday, the price on our tickets of the flights that we're taking was $850.
Wow.
Normally, it's $1,500 to $1,600 by if you wait till October. So this is the time to strike while it's hot. Some people say to me, and this is scriptural. You can look it up in Psalm 37. It says, God will put a desire in your heart. And then it says, commit your way unto him, and he will bring it to pass. People have said, I've had a desire in my heart all my life to go, but I can't afford it. Or, but my knee hurts me. I can't go. All these buts. If God put a desire in your heart, he's not some evil meanie who says, yeah, I'm putting a desire in your heart, but you're never going to go. That's not it. The rest of that scripture in Psalm 37 says he's going to bring it to pass. So you have to take the steps of believing, of faith. And the first step is get your passport.
Yeah. All right, Colonel, I want to give the number out, and I want to put it on as well on the social media sites. 559
760 5410. 559-760-5410. 5410.
Again, that's 559-760-5410. 559-760-5410. 11 days. I went with you November 2019, and it was an unforgettable experience. There's so many highlights to the trip. I really love. I don't know if you're going to be able to do it, but going on the Golan Heights and looking into Syria, that was pretty cool.
That was.
That was really cool. Yeah. And then we got kind of escorted out of there because
well, the Army.
They're
kind of pushy about protecting their. I thought we would infiltrate and see if they were really on the ball.
Yeah, make sure they were doing what they were doing. But one of the things, Colonel, we'll kind of finish out with this. One of the things that I thought was just was so fascinating was the young Israelis, because the military, it's mandated, right? Unless you're a religious Jew, you got to serve. You got to serve 2 years, right? 18.
Well, A minimal, yeah. And but here's the interesting thing. Whereas most people have tried to avoid the draft and all that sort of stuff, not in Israel. In Israel, there's summer camps before you even get out of high school. If you want to increase your chances of getting into the toughest units and the ones that go into combat first and all these kind of things, you can go to camps in the summer. You can pay for it and get trained in that all kind of stuff. And look, there's a pride in serving your country. There's a pride in being part of it. And Israel has that. And they understand that if they don't stand up for what is right, then nobody else is going to stand for them. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you see it on these young men and women, because at some of the sites, because they have the young kids go to these sites as well, so they understand their own history. Correct?
That's exactly right. And you have some of the usually I shouldn't say they're all women instructors, but oftentimes the women are chosen to take these groups to different sites, biblical sites.
Yeah, they were there when we were there.
Yeah, and because a lot of Israelis grow up without knowing anything about the Bible. It's a secular country, a lot like ours is, and so they want to make sure they understand the whole gamut of what their life is all about and what this country is all about. So, in fact, you can see them marching up on Masada, going to places that have biblical connections, and it's exciting. And where do they swear them in at? Usually at the Western Wall.
Really?
After their training is over. And yes, I mean, all this stuff is building in them a love for the country and standing up for something that's very important.
I wish we did something like that here in the U.S. I really do. If you want to serve your country, get ready. During high school. I know we have ROTC, I guess, but something where you travel the country and you just get to know America. You just get that love. And I think a lot of this younger generation would love this country more if maybe they just understand. And maybe they're not to blame. I know sometimes we talk about this woke generation or these young kids. They don't get America. Well, maybe we haven't done our part. We haven't showed them the greatness of this country. And we're not perfect. I mean, there's no Colonel. You've been all around the world. Is there a perfect country? There's no perfect country.
Well, I keep going to Israel 100 times. They're getting pretty close to it, but. I want to say how fortunate I was to have been born when I was, and to have been alive 5 years old, 6 years old, when my dad and uncles and everybody came back from the war. And these were heroes. I mean, they were just heroes to me. I'd just sit around and look at them, and they would give me some of their medals, and they'd
wow.
And I remember playing with a Luger that my one uncle brought back from Germany, and he also had I remember this very well. He had a German knife, a long knife that he brought back, and I was throwing it into our Davenport, trying to stick it. But to have men in your family and in your neighborhood who had served, these were giants, and they knew the difference between right and wrong. And look, they stopped their lives where they were. They went off to war. Sometimes they didn't get home for 4 or 5 years. They came back and they just picked up in the civilian world, but they were changed. And we don't see that very much anymore.
That's true.
And so it's in many ways it's not being passed on. I know when Vietnam first started, and some of us didn't get over there the first couple of years, we were so afraid, and we were saying things. It's going to get over before we get there. This isn't fair. Our fathers had their war.
Yeah.
Now, look, then we found out what war was really like. But nevertheless, there was a pride in going off to defend what we stood for. And this was one of the things, and this is why I think Ukraine is so important. Because we had this idea, kids my age, we had this idea that we were the good guys in the world. And if somebody needed help, we would go there. People say, well, we can't be a policeman. We're not the policeman of the world. Yes, we are. In my mind,
agreed.
If we are a godly country and we're standing for the right things, then we ought to be the cop on the beat. We ought to be the ones that go, that move to Ukraine, or at least get our weaponry there and everything else. I know things have changed. It's a much different world, but nevertheless, that's the kind of thing that somebody like me thinks about when it comes to Ukraine. They are being hammered by a bully, and I remember even as a little kid going up and slugging the biggest bully in our neighborhood, and he didn't know it was coming. I just punched him in the stomach, and he went down. Okay.
Did he bully after that?
I don't remember that he ever did. It was like he was so shocked that some little kid wouldn't take his baloney. We need that again in our country. We need to say, all right, we are standing for what's right, and we have to know what's right. And I think we're a long way from it, and I hope we can change.
That's so true, Colonel. Very true. Retired Marine Corps Colonel John Sommervile in studio. Thank you so much again. I want to give the number out, Colonel, for those that are part of our national audience, our local audience here. You want to go to Israel? You definitely got to call the Colonel. Call him now, 559-760-54. Well, don't call him right now because he's on the air. Call him in about a minute and 2 seconds. Then he'll be off the air, and then he'll be able to take your call. 559-760-5410. That's 559-760-5410. Colonel, there you go. Our Facebook audience is thanking you, Colonel, for your service, and thank you for such an informative hour, Colonel. That always happens when you're in studio. So I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do. Again, October 8th through the 20th, and then in January, we didn't even talk about the January trip, but you'll have to stay tuned. That one's specifically for pastors and pastors' wives. Colonel, I'll give you the last word before we go to Fox News.
Oh, what a joy it is to be in this KXEX studio. This is a blessing to Fresno, whether they know it or not. You have been blessing them by bringing the truth for a long time now, and it's going to continue on. And they need this. This city needs it. This country needs it. Thanks for letting me in the door.
Absolutely. Well, praise God. Thank you, and we'll be back again. God bless. Let God do the rest.